What is up everyone, and welcome to some more F1 22. Last time out we were at the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. It went pretty well. If you haven't watched it yet, I definitely recommend doing so. We got a P3 podium finish, one of our best results of the season, bar Miami where we got a P2 obviously. If you haven't seen that one, what are you doing here? Anyway, next up we've got the Canadian Grand Prix. It's a race that I think could go either way, honestly. There's lots of straights, but there's also lots of tight, twisty, complex corners. So it depends which one outweighs the other to determine whether we have a good race or a bad race. It also depends on the weather forecast. Very often it rains, and when it rains in Canada, I never do particularly well. So yeah, there's just a lot of factors at play that we've got to consider to see whether things are going to go well for us or not. And yeah, I mean, the season so far has been pretty good. I think we're overdue maybe a slightly more reflective result of our pace. I think we've been very lucky. You can see Aston Martin and Williams starting to deviate away from us a little bit. And yeah, we need to make a few more development gains soon to really sort of not fall behind those guys drastically. We've got one aero upgrade coming along, but it's only a minor, so it would be useful to have a few more upgrades coming onto the car soon enough, so we can kind of keep up with the development of the cars around us. Obviously, we're playing on the setting where we get less resource points and less money than the cars around us. I've done that by design, just because it makes the career mode a bit more interesting for a bit longer. It takes a few seasons to become a front running car rather than just the one or two. We got P5 in the first practice session. It did get rained off at the end though, so I'm not sure if this is too indicative of the pace, but if it is, then it's certainly an encouraging sign to be only 2/10 off the leaders, and in P5, you know, I'd be more than happy with that. But we'll have to wait and see what actually happens with regards to that. Either way, skip through all the development boosts and things like that. It's going to be very useful for our development. I think, honestly, on the chassis front, I know I've been harping on about the chassis for all of these past few videos where we've been developing chassis parts. I think now, honestly, we're in a position where the chassis isn't the biggest concern for us now. I think now it's the aero more than anything, so don't be surprised if I kind of focus more down the aero route than anything else. I think we're the worst aero car on the grid, so we want to try and do what we can to change that as quickly as possible. So yeah, practice was good, and now it's going to be all about qualifying, but I'm told it's going to be a wet session, so I can only hope that it's not too wet that it spoils our day. We'll have to wait and see what happens with regards to that. Yeah, like I said, I never do particularly well in the wet here, so I can only hope that we can, you know, if we can get into at least Q2, as always, that'll be a good result, but we'll see what happens. This is the end of our first flying lap on Q1, and it's going to be a 1:21. Not a fantastic lap, really. Quite significantly far behind Ocon and Magnussen, and I think we're going to need to improve by at least a bit if we want to make it into Q2. Fortunately, end of our second flying lap in the first qualifying session, we improved by 0.6, and that is good enough to get us into P14 at the end of the session, which will be good enough for us to get through to the next qualifying session. So we're into Q2, target met. You know, I can't be too upset about that. You can see that both of the AlphaTauris made it through. Surprisingly, I was ahead of both of the Alpines. Ocon was 16th, and Alonso was last. He got out-qualified by Fittipaldi by 1,000th of a second. So, yeah, I was quite surprised by that. Even more surprised, though, was the fact that, or even more surprising to me, was the fact that I got outperformed in that session by both of the Alfa Romeos. I think they're making some development gains slowly but surely, but still, they, driver-wise, don't have the strongest lineup in Formula 1. It's not a diss on the drivers they have in real life, but in the game, the driver stats for Schwartzman and Zhou are not particularly high. It's a 120.4, same as what I had in Q1 to kick off this session. Norris goes fastest with a 1:19.4. You can see I'm quite significantly further off the leaders on this occasion. So yeah, we're going to have to probably just be looking at the fringes of the points in the race, I think, if anything. I don't think I'm competing with the McLarens and the Mercedes and the Ferrari and the Red Bull. I think it's going to be the sort of next tier of cars that we're going to be looking at having a proper race with. We're on to our final flying lap of Q2 now. I always reuse inters in wet qualifying sessions, so this technically is a used set, but they only lose like half a tenth, if that. So I figure it's not going to be, you know, if I can improve my time, I can improve it irrespective of whether there's half a tenth left in the tyres. And if I miss out on Q3 by half a tenth, so be it, or less than half a tenth, so be it, you know, I shouldn't have rolled the dice. But I figure it's just easier, especially if the race is going to be wet as well, which I don't know whether it is going to be or not. I guess we'll have to wait and see. Yeah, I'm sure they probably said, but I've forgotten. Either way, I'm not really improving on this lap, and I'm in P16, so I'm going to need to pull something quite drastic out in this final chicane if I want to make it through to Q3. So we'll have to see what happens. I do make up a few tenths there. I guess I must have taken that way better. Actually, I make up nearly 6 tenths again to get a 1:19.8, but in the end it's still only good enough for P14, so we're at least consistent, but it's not quite what I would have wanted. Definitely a weaker performance than our most recent qualifying sessions, but yeah, ironically, if we had gone onto new tyres, there's a chance that we could have got P12, but I'm not going to worry about it too much. I think I can get ahead of these guys in the race. It just remains to be seen what kind of race we're going to be, weather-wise and also performance-wise. Because I always find I do a little bit better in qualifying than I do in the race. That's kind of my the outcome of most of my races, is that even if my qualifying pace is quite good, it doesn't necessarily always translate over into the race itself. So we'll have to wait and see. We're still winning this rivalry against Hamilton, so that's encouraging to see, but I think after the race will probably be a different story, unless he has some kind of issue in the race. You know, he's a strong opponent, and I'm in quite a weak car, so it will remain to be seen what happens with that. But yeah, no, all in all, I think a pretty good qualifying result given the circumstances. And like I said, I think we were long overdue kind of not having such a strong performance as we've been having recently. But hopefully we can maybe sneak into the fringes of the points in the race, and let's get into it.
It's time once again then to go racing here in Montreal, the second largest French-speaking city in the world, and home since 1978 to the Canadian Grand Prix. We'll be seeing top speeds of around 210 miles per hour here at the circuit Gilles Villeneuve, with around 2/3 of the lap taken at full throttle. High-speed chicanes spell potential danger, especially at the infamous Wall of Champions, and watch out for overtaking into the hairpin and that final chicane. Before we begin, let's take a quick look at the grid lineup for today's race. Charles Leclerc lines up on pole position. Sergio Perez lines up alongside. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Verstappen, Sainz, Lando Norris and Hamilton, Russell, Ricciardo, Ocon and Pierre Gasly, Mick Schumacher, Tsunoda, Alex Albon, Robinson, Schwartzman, Joe, Sebastian Vettel and Kevin Magnussen, Latifi, Fittipaldi, Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll brings the grid to a close. And with lights out just moments away, it's time to go down to the track. Now, Natalie Pinkham, I wonder, might we be in for some early pit stops today from the midfield teams, trying to put pressure on or disrupt things for the leaders up front?
If you're in the middle of the pack, you know, you've got your own race to run. I don't think they're going to be thinking about causing trouble up front. However, closer to the head of the pack, don't be surprised to see some split strategies. If you're running second and third, for example, bringing one car in for an undercut whilst leaving the other out longer can put a lot of pressure on the leader and maybe force them into making an error.
Okay, now that we've got some good points on the board, let's continue this form and aim for another top 10 finish.
So obviously we had the podium finish last race, and they want me to aim for the points again. I think that's honestly a pretty good target. If you think about Spain, where I started 21st and finished 8th, you know, I'd hope that starting 14th I might just be able to get back into the points as well. It is a harder track to overtake at. It's probably one of the hardest tracks for overtaking in the game, in my opinion. Very easy to get sucked into a DRS train or something of that description, so it remains to be seen what will happen. But yeah, Stroll with a penalty promoted Fittipaldi up one place. It didn't do anything for me. I also don't know if you saw, but the leaders, the top 7 in qualifying were separated by only like a tenth and a half. 15 hundredths of a second separated. I think it's Leclerc on pole and Russell in 7th, which is quite remarkable really. But anyway, here we go. The lights come on and the lights go out, and here we go. It's a pretty good start. We are on the softs compared to Albon on the mediums. We're going for an aggressive strategy, soft medium, whereas I think a lot of people are going either soft hard or medium hard. We make up a couple of illegal overtakes there, which we are going to have to hand back to I think that was Schumacher and Gasly, and now we're being attacked by Tsunoda here as well as we switch camera angle, and we come through wheel to wheel with Tsunoda again. We just about get ahead of him, but he is, I think, going to attack. Oh no, he's not attacking us quite yet, but we're going to attack Gasly and Schumacher to the point that we actually run wide and have to come back onto the circuit. That was definitely an illegal overtake on Schumacher, so don't be surprised if I have to hand that back to him. And now Tsunoda's getting aggressive with me once again, and we're probably going to go wheel to wheel through this corner as well. We're still wheel to wheel. It's basically a lap-long wheel-to-wheel battle with Yuki Tsunoda with a few extra bits. He just about gets ahead of us. I think we're going to try and go around him at this tight hairpin. He goes at the inside of Mick Schumacher, and I mean, this is an epic scrap so far. I don't know where Pierre Gasly's going in all of this. I think he actually managed to get ahead of George Russell, who has had a shocking start, falling all the way to sort of like I think P10 when he started P7, so that's really not good for him. We just about get ahead of Tsunoda for now, but you know, maybe he'll come back at us later in the race. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, all things considered, not a bad start. Now here we are towards the end of lap 2 as we come into the hairpin. I'm going to dive one up the inside of Mick Schumacher there, and that gives us P11 now, I believe. And yeah, we retain P11 for the time being, just one position away from the points. And we've got Russell and Gasly directly ahead of us, so we could be looking at 1 or 2 points potentially if we can get ahead of these guys. I give Russell a bit of a shunt, just saying get on with it. But fortunately, I think I come away without any damage. You can see there, nothing says anything bad has happened to my car, so I think we're okay for now. But we'll have to wait and see for certain to see if there's any long-lasting effects. Robert Schwartzman has a DNF. We'll find out in a second what the cause of that was, if it's clear. The Alfa Romeos did have a pretty good qualifying, so it's a shame for his race to end like that. But you can see he just slows down. No sign of smoke, so I can only assume that this was probably a gearbox failure maybe, or something to that description. Nothing engine related, otherwise there probably would have been smoke out the back. But yeah, unfortunate for him. Now here we are on lap 11, and I think Mick Schumacher's coming back at us here as we go into the hairpin. He's trying to go for a move on me like I went for on him on lap 2, but he doesn't quite pull it off. But he will have the DRS now, which is a luxury I did not have when we were on lap 2. And this just allows him to absolutely breeze past me. You know, there's no competition whatsoever here, basically, so I'm going to have to see if I can come back at him again at some point later. He's going to have DRS here as well, and that's going to allow him to really drag himself away from me for the time being. So, unfortunate, but it's a long race. I've still got 23 laps to go. I am on a more aggressive strategy than these guys. It kind of makes sense that my soft tyres might be starting to die away compared to their mediums, which is why at the end of that lap, I've come into the pits, and I'm going to be switching onto medium tyres, which I'm hoping will carry me for the rest of the race. I think they should be okay, because usually the tyre deg in Canada is not too bad. I mean, I made 12 laps on the softs work, so I don't think it's a big problem to try and make 23 laps on the mediums work. We did have a brief issue in the pits, and unfortunately this has brought us out right in contention with Sonoda and Joe, and I think that's also Magnussen behind Joe. So yeah, we're in a bit of a pickle in the position we're in. Sonoda gets ahead of us basically immediately, and he's going to be on warm tyres because he didn't just come out the pits. Mine is still freezing cold, the grip is not there, so it's going to be a struggle for now, but we'll see what we can do, see if we can make it work. Unfortunately, we still just don't have the pace, and you can see that Joe has managed to send the moves on me there, but he goes a bit deep into the corner, and this allows me to attack him back. I'm actually burning battery for a second there. That's how desperate I am to not lose this position to him. We go up the inside of him at the hairpin, and I think we're just going to retain this position for now. Kevin Magnussen was also getting interested behind, and now as we come onto the start of lap 14, you see that they are both hounding me for position, and both actually get ahead of me at the first corner. I just about managed to get back around Joe. I try and go around Magnussen, but the grip is not quite there enough for me to get him. I do think about going around the outside at this next corner, but I think better of it. He stops right on the middle of the apex, and I narrowly avoid going into the back of him. But yeah, that's still an unfortunate circumstance we find ourselves in, and we're going to have to try and make up these positions the long way around from now on. We progress a little bit further through the lap, and there's another failure. It seems to be someone directly in front of us who hadn't pitted yet, and it is Enzo Fittipaldi for his second DNF of his career. The first one, of course, being in Jeddah, where he had that mechanical failure. He's had another failure there. I'm not sure if it was gearbox or engine related, but yeah, unfortunate for him nonetheless. Now we're on to lap 17, and you see we're still right on the back of Magnussen, but unfortunately we just haven't been able to find a way through. Until now, we go for a bit of an unorthodox overtake in a corner, which typically is not one that I'm particularly strong at. And it proves to work out very well for us because we also get the DRS on the exit of the corner. So yeah, that's a nice place to overtake, and we're up into P14 again now. Still got a long fight back to the points. I think someone's pitted between now and then, and that moves us up into P13. And we've also closed up to the back of Sonoda remarkably quickly, and we're going to go for the same move again. The same move that we made on Magnussen last lap, we make on Yuki Tsunoda this lap, and it works a treat. That is not a particularly conventional overtaking spot, but it's worked for us 2 laps in a row, so we'll see what else kind of magic we can make work if we keep doing that. Move on a little bit through the race now, and we've caught up to the back of Schumacher and Gasly. This is the fight for P10. This is the fight for the final point in the race, which is where I'm aiming for. And yeah, I'm just trying to find a way past Schumacher. I think I'd already been attacking him for a few laps at this point, with no real way of getting past him. I mount a really big challenge here, try and go around the outside of him at the first few corners, but I just can't quite make it work. We'll see if I can pull off that signature dive up the inside at this next corner, but I don't get past him, unfortunately. And now we're on to lap 29, a couple laps later. We're going through the same complex, and we'll see if I can make the move work on him on this occasion. We go up the inside. We're going to dive up the inside here again, and that's 3 times in this race we've made an unconventional overtake in that exact same position. You can see from this onboard front wing camera, there is a big chunk missing from my rear wing. I can only assume that was when I hit Russell. I've been having a lot of these this season, I think, where there's been chunks missing from my front wing. But it hasn't been affecting me too much. Maybe it's even reducing the amount of downforce I have. No, I'm kidding, obviously. Lap 32, and we're having a go at Gasly as we come into the final chicane. We don't have enough space to make the corner, and the game says no, you can't do that, so I slow down to let him through. But I'm going to try and overtake him again as soon as he's overtaken me. Schumacher tries his luck, and he goes for an absolute send and just absolutely 10-pin bowls his way into Pierre Gasly. There's no way Pierre Gasly got away from that without any damage. And yeah, I think Schumacher was trying to go for a strike there, but in the end he just ended up looking like a turkey. So unfortunate for him, but we capitalise on that mistake, and we're up into P10. We're in the points position. So yeah, that was a bit dodgy, a real black bag operation from Nick Schumacher, and I'm more than happy to pick up the pieces. I don't think we're going to make up any more positions in this race on account of the fact that Russell is 13 seconds up the road, but if we can hold off Schumacher to stay in the points, that would be fantastic. It would keep our points finishing streak alive. Every race we finished this season, we've scored points in, which is much better than we could have said for this point last season. Every race we didn't finish was the only ones we were running in the points at any moment, which was yeah, an unfortunate facet of last season, but I guess they can't DNF me from every race. So yeah, this one's been going a lot better, and yeah, hopefully we can just hold off Schumacher through this last DRS straight to grab the final point. Charles Leclerc wins the race. I think that's actually his first race win of the season. Believe it or not, the world champion took 9 races this season to try and finally win one, and yeah, he finally doesn't come off second best. We'll find out who else finished on the podium at the end of the race. Mick Schumacher's looking to have a go, but he's not quite close enough. Now we're just going to burn battery to the line. He's going to be 2 tenths behind me. He's closing and closing and closing, but he just doesn't have enough time to kind of make the move. And that allows me to take the final point and continue my points finishing streak, which stretches back now to Miami. It's a 5 race points finishing streak. Pretty solid. And we also get driver of the day.
Pulling their Ferrari into Parc Ferme after a fantastic race. Natalie Pinkham, how do you think they were able to set themselves apart today?
I think a large part of the result comes down to temperament. They were able to keep their head when everyone around them was losing theirs, and that has allowed them to get the best out of the car, to maximise the strategy and stay out of trouble.
And here we are, a team that is no stranger to the podium, taking their place on top once again. A sublime race today, and a stunning win for Ferrari.
So yeah, that's Leclerc P1 and then a Red Bull 2-3 with Verstappen ahead. I think Perez will still be leading the championship after that, but yeah, Verstappen will have closed him up by a few points there. Leclerc will be marking out his own credentials for defending his title. Despite the fact that this is his first race win of the season, he's been a consistent podium star, and that's been enough. He hasn't had a lot of the bad luck that some of the other cars have had over the first 9 races, and this championship could be potentially shaping up into something very interesting. We'll see where we are in the standings as a result of that race. We'll just have a look. Obviously Fittipaldi didn't finish the race. Gasly was unfortunate to end up being punted down to 19th as a result of that contact with Schumacher. We just about hold on to P5, but I think if Hamilton has another good race, it's guaranteed that we're going to fall to P6, maybe even P7 if Russell also outperforms us. We hold on to P5 in the constructors. That's where we're aiming. That's our priority. It's where my priorities lie, and that's what I'm going to be sort of focusing on, is maximising the points that we can for the constructors championship in the battle with Alpine. I'm not going to worry too much about my individual fights in the drivers championship, because it doesn't feel particularly important. You can see that start again. I definitely cut the corner there. I'm surprised I didn't get a warning. We were even trying to challenge the likes of Alonso for a second there, but I just went way too wide to make that work. And yeah, ended up battling with Tsunoda, with the Hasses and the AlphaTauris for the majority of the race, unfortunately. But that's where we're supposed to be. This has probably been the most sort of representative race of our actual pace, rather than these sort of fluky podiums and top 5s that we've been having for a lot of the season. But yeah, I don't necessarily want those to end, because they've been allowing us to take home a big haul of points. Yeah, I can't remember what's next. I think it's Britain, which is always a strong race for me, so perhaps we'll be in with a shot of another top 5 or something like that there. I think we were running in around that sort of position. I think we were sort of like 7th or 8th before our DNF last season. So maybe if we can finish this race with a stronger car, we could be looking at an even stronger performance. Also, it's my home race, so obviously I'd like to do better there to you know, prevent a repeat of what happened last year, and appease the home crowd and all that kind of thing. All in all, yeah, I'm satisfied with how this race went. I'm not like amazingly happy because I would have liked to grab more points. You know, we got outscored by Alpine today, which is always something that I want to avoid. I think at this point, as I previously said, I don't think AlphaTauri are going to be as much of a threat as I initially thought. I think it's just that win and third place in the same race, that was what, 40 or 41 points in the bag for them there, which can make things look way more dramatic than they actually are. Whereas we're sort of a consistent points finisher, consistent sort of top 5 or 6 finisher. That's what we want to be looking at. We don't want to be worrying about anything that isn't really going to be an issue. It's Alpine that we want to be looking at, who are also in a similar boat to us. And yeah, just hope that we can contend with them for the rest of the season. You see the highlights there. It was a pretty eventful race. There was a bit of a lull in the middle where I wasn't really around anyone. Hamilton overtakes me in the rivalry as a result of outperforming me in that race. That was to be expected. But who knows, maybe we can get him back at Britain. It's one of his strongest circuits as well, so I'm not overly optimistic about our chances of doing that, but we'll have to wait and see. Enzo Fittipaldi, I think his contract's up for renewal soon. Hopefully it comes up soon enough to the point that I don't have to pay him more because he's leveled up again. We get a lot of money from the damage and the sponsor bonuses and things like that. The only thing we miss out on is the no DNFs, and that's going to be it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure you like and subscribe, and hopefully I will see you in the next one.